so excited for our guest today. We have Matthew Stewart. You might recognize him from Instagram or from TikTok. Great TikTok fame, but often Matt has a sidekick, his grandma, GB. She's amazing, and I started following them in the last few months. Their videos are so heartwarming and hilarious. So I was like, who is this guy? Who is this lady? They're wonderful. So I started scrolling down, wondering like where you started. Like, why did you start sharing all these videos of her? And the farther I went down your feed, I realized that you are a welder. And I got really excited because that's our world. That's what we do. And you're the person that we love to share stories about. So thought we'd kind of, flip the script a little bit and have it be about, this whole other side of your life that probably not many people know about. So we want you to share a little bit about yourself, about what you're doing now, your current job position, and then we'll dig in a little more after that.
Okay. Well, I'm actually an instructor at Northwest Florida State College now. I had gone through their welding program probably 5 years ago, and I was waiting tables before that. So it was kind of a big change to go from waiting tables to seeing welding, because I'd never seen anything like that before. And, went in there and it's like, well, let me give this a shot. I had seen some stuff online. It was time for a change in my life. So I went through their welding program. It's about a year and a half, so 18 months. You go through all the processes. You also learn like carbon arc gouging, plasma cutting, basically everything, a little bit of rigging and even a little bit of pipe fitting. So I went through the program and I was like, I love this. This is awesome. I can see myself doing this for a while. But while I was in there, I always told the instructor, his name's Scotty Smith, that I would love to come back and teach sometime. I was that's kind of my end goals, go out there, weld for a little bit, hit the road, see some things, and then come back and teach one day. And he's like, oh man, that'd be awesome. I'd love to have you back. I was like, okay, cool. So I ended up going out, traveled around for a while, did a few jobs. I mostly stuck to like paper mills. I did a power plant, which is actually close to home. So that was nice. So I was only like an hour and a half from home. So I did that for about 6 months. But I mostly do pipe welding, but I did do some pulper tubs. So I did that, traveled around, came back. I got a phone call from Scotty and he's like, hey, we got a position if you want it. And I was like, if I come apply for it. And I was like, oh man, I'd love it. That'd be awesome. So I went in, I applied. I believe there was like 7 or 8 applicants and I ended up getting it. So my end game came a little bit sooner than I expected. I had a 10-year plan, but my 10-year plan was kind of cut short and I came back and now I'm an instructor.
So these tubs you were working on, what's the name of those tubs again?
It's a pulper tub. So at paper mills, they make pulp paper. So they dump all the, like one of them was one of them was like a recycle facility. So you see the big bundles of cardboard boxes behind like Winn-Dixie or your local grocery store. They come pick those up. They take them to a plant. They get fed into this huge tub. It's like a huge blender basically. So they all get dumped in there and it's got the blades at the bottom that like an agitator, like I said, like a big blender. So it grinds it all back up and then it gets fed back into the system and they make like brown paper with it, like construction stuff.
Very cool.
Yeah. So
yeah. That's we lost your face. There you are.
Sorry. GB was actually trying to call me. So.
Oh. I was just kind of curious, what led you from restaurant server to the welding career? Like, what was that step? What did that look like?
Well, I'd waited tables for about 15 years and I was ready to get out. I had kind of done my time in the hospitality business and I wasn't really enjoying it anymore. I felt like there was no sense of accomplishment. I would go in there, I'd make my money, and then I would just go home and spend it. And it was just a vicious cycle doing the same thing over and over again. And just, there was no, like I said, I mean, there was no end game to it. It was just the same thing every day all over again. So I'd made a big change in my life and I decided, well, if I'm changing all this other stuff in my life, why not just change my career? So I looked up online and I saw some welding and I was like, well, that looks really cool. So my dad was actually an instructor up at the college for the fire academy. And I was like, well, he told me about Scotty and his program. He's like, you should go up there and talk to him. I said, okay. So I ended up going up there, talked to him a little bit. He gave me a tour of the shop and I was like, well, this looks cool. Just give it a go. Let's see what happens. So I went in there, started the program and everything. And let's just say that for the first time I struck an arc and it lit up and I saw it through the welding hood, I was like, man, this is it. It's like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Like, this is me for sure. So that's really what drew it to me.
I definitely know that feeling. That was exactly how it was with me when I struck my first arc with that 60-10. I was like, all right, this is what I want to do now forever. Oh yeah,
right.
What was going into it? What was your expectation? Did you have an expectation, or were you just kind of like, we'll see what it's like, and if I like it, or expectation versus reality? What was that like?
Expectation, I guess I was just kind of, like you said, I was just going, let's just see what it is, see what happens. I knew it was a long program and it was kind of going to take a lot of time and effort, but I was like, well, I mean, if I enjoy it, then it's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I went in kind of blind, really, because like I said, I knew nothing about welding or how it worked or anything like that. And then so I guess the reality of it is, like I said, I mean, you're harnessing lightning to melt metal to fuse these things together. So it's kind of like,
I am a god.
Yeah, it's like the power of Thor, right? Except for without a hammer, you have a TIG rig or a stinger. So like seeing that, how awesome it was, and I was like, man, this is me. This is cool.
Right
so
on.
Definitely one of the coolest things I've ever done in my life and seen.
Heck yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
So
to go from delivering somebody's food to arcing up and being like, whoa, look at this.
And like when you're delivering food, you kind of got to be on. So you got to be like nice to people, even if you're having a bad day, or, you want that tip. So you're kind of like, I remember the first time I worked as a host in a restaurant, because I used to do I would be a busboy and I never really waited tables, but I had a headache that night because I smiled the entire, I don't smile. I had to smile the entire night while I was showing people to their tables. And I'm like, I got to go back to washing dishes or something.
Right. You got to put on that fake face. You walk up to them and you talk to them like this and you turn around and walk away. And
exactly.
In welding, you just literally cover your face.
And people think like welders have a hard lifestyle. Like working in the restaurant industry, those people are crazy. Like that's a whole nother lifestyle to go through.
For sure.
Yeah.
Like welding is the traveling, and I mean, it's dirty, hot work or cold work. I mean, it could be snowing or it could be, 100 degrees outside, or you're inside of like the pulper tub in the sun baking out there and it's 150 degrees. But at the restaurant, man, it's just like, I don't know. I would do welding every day.
So tell us about some of your influences, either, life influencers or, someone who's inspired you in your welding career.
Well, my biggest influence in my welding career has been Scotty Smith. He was my instructor in school. And then we formed a pretty good friendship while I was in there. Even though he said, we're not friends, we're not buddies, where I'm teaching you how to weld and that's how it is. Well, we became friends. I was kind of one of the older students in the program. So having him show me how it all worked and teaching me and everything, he'll never take credit for it, but he really did change my life to go from waiting tables and being in that vicious little circle there. And same thing over and over again to helping me travel and it put me in a better place financially, mentally. Like I said, it just changed my whole life, and I definitely owe it to him.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's
He'll
incredible.
He'll never know how much I appreciate what he did for me.
Right on.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, obviously you mentioned, a few little things, and I mean, welding led you now to this amazing career where you get to teach others what you learned and what you love. What other sort of life experiences or things has welding brought to you?
I mean, it's given me the chance to kind of travel a little bit. I've lived in Destin, Florida my entire life. I didn't really go far or travel very much or see new places. And I always had it in my head that I wanted to travel around and figure out where I wanted to live and everything else. So it was a way to, I mean, I got the new truck and the big camper. I had a 42-foot camper and it was basically a house on wheels. So it gave me the chance to travel around and see new places, meet new people, see how things really work in the world. I mean, you
Yeah.
take for granted a lot of the things you have at home, you know, the comforts of home, and you don't really know how you're getting it. It's just, you hit a light switch and the power comes on. You know, you don't really think about what goes into getting the power. So being able to see how that worked, I think just gives me more of a respect for being able to just hit that switch. You know, I had a part in making sure that we have power around here, you know, fixed a few things and all that. And then at the paper mills, you know, like, who doesn't love paper towels and toilet paper, right? And pretty big, yeah,
Especially
big
these
deal.
days. You never know when all of a sudden we're going to run out of toilet paper.
Right. Everybody hoarding it up, you know, collecting their toilet paper. But so be
You'd
able to
like,
see,
I can make toilet paper, so we're all good.
yeah,
Got this.
yeah, they go to the Sam's or the Costco, and it's like, yeah, I had a part of that. You know, you're welcome for your toilet paper and paper towels.
You want me to autograph that for you?
Yeah. So I think that opportunity to see all that and then travel around and everything else, it showed me how much I do love being where I am from. It made it more, it verified that I wanted to be here. So it's hard being away from family and the place, you know. So I think it gave me the opportunity to make sure that I was where I wanted to be.
That's an experience more people need to have is even if you're not traveling globally, even just around the United States, like there's so many different types of people, of cultures, of like every little area corner of the United States has a totally different vibe to it. And I think I think if people travel more like that, people would be happier and they would kind of understand each other a little bit better.
Right. Yeah, and you meet all kinds of people out there, so
good and bad.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Like some of the people I was trying to escape from the restaurant life were still out there, but
exactly.
Yeah, it's different relationships.
So what's your favorite thing about welding?
Well, I consider welding an art form. I think a lot of people don't realize, you know, they're looking at something and it's put together and it's just put together. But when I look at it, you know, I look at the welds on it, like, man, look at this weld, you know, kind of thing. And it's like, oh man, this guy should have spent a little more time, or, oh man, this guy knew what he was doing, kind of thing. And my favorite process was TIG stainless. So it's colorful and you can walk in the cup. So you get the little steps in it and everything, you know, and when you're done, you're looking at it and it's pretty, you know. I definitely take pride in my work and I take pride in my welds. So being able to walk away from it and people come by and kind of look at it and be like, oh wow, you know, that's a pretty weld. And it's awesome. It's an awesome feeling, right?
Yeah, it is. I totally get it.
Yeah.
It's like, that's your work. You leave your signature on it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And everybody's welds kind of look a little different.
Yep.
It's like definitely your stamp.
I sometimes I like to try to imitate other people's, like, because if you go on like Instagram, everyone's got their own unique style. And I think actually I've learned a lot by trying to replicate somebody else's weld. You're like, oh, I see what they did here. I see why they did this. Or, you know,
right,
I should have been doing this like this a long time ago, things like that. Yeah, it's always fun to see the different work. Like people kind of start off in the same place and then they branch out and they put their own stamp on whatever they're doing.
Right. That's about teaching. You know, I go in there and I try to teach them, okay, well, this is how I do it, but you have to keep in mind that you're going to do it eventually your way. So here's how I do it. Now build off of it, you know, showing them that. That's a big step that I'm learning is, okay, here's how I do it, but let's see what you got, kind of deal.
It can probably, I'm guessing it can kind of be difficult sometimes too, to be like, all right, you got to learn how to crawl before you walk and walk before you run, because people want to come in and right off the bat, they're like, I'd like to do a 6G walk in the cup around here. And it's like, let's just start off by running some beads, you know, first to see where you're at.
Yeah. And see, that's what we do. You come in and you do some padding and you just do that over and over and over again until I think it looks okay. Well, that looks like a bead, you know, okay, let's move on to the next. Now try it horizontal. Now try it vertical before we even get close to any of that. But there's a lot of people I have to slow down that just, they come in, I think they think it's going to be a lot easier than it really is. You know, it's definitely take some time to learn, you know, that's
right,
the whole time. So I think that getting them, like you said, to slow down and pay attention and kind of listen to the things I'm saying is a big step.
Right on.
Yeah. So tell us about some of your favorite welding projects. Like, do you have a project that you've done that really stands out to you that you're really proud of?
Well, the welding project that I'm most proud of right now is building this school. We're starting a new school in Defuniak. Right now I teach in Niceville, and we're building all the welding booths, and I'm building carts for the machines and doing all that. So fabbing all that together it's literally building my future,
Yeah.
getting, being able to show the new people coming in what I know how to do so they can go out there and experience what I experienced. So I think that's probably that means the most to me. But I think one of the coolest things that I ever did was we had a little mini shutdown at one of the plants one time. And I was up working with a guy. I was still a little bit newer, and he had a lot of years behind him. And when they shut down this pipe we were working on and cut it apart, they couldn't get the water to stop. It was still flowing out. And so they put the new piece up, and they're like, look, you need to shove this up in there. So we were shoving purge paper up in it, trying to get the water to stop just long enough to get a root in it so we could be done.
Right.
So I'm like shoving all this purge paper in there, trying to, get the water to stop, and then started welding on it, but the water started coming again. So, and we were TIG welding. So I was like, oh man, this is never going to work. Yeah. So the guy that was up there with me, actually, I can't remember how many years, over 20 years of experience, was up there, and he's trying to go with it. Of course, he can't get it going, and he's like trying so hard to get it to happen. And I was just like, man, I looked down at my foreman, basically like, man, this ain't gonna work. It's like, we got to figure out how to get this water to stop. He's like, oh, just figure it out. You get it done. We need to turn this thing back on. I'm like, well, I understand, but I mean, there's water coming out of this pipe. So I ended up I was like, well, let me try one more time. And the guy was like, whatever, man, here, and gave me everything. And I ended up cranking up the heat, and I had my wire, and I just got this nice puddle going on it. And I was like, I'm just going to shove this wire and try to get a big old puddle and see if I can't just take it across this water and see if it works. I mean, just something popped in my head. Why not? So I did. I got it going, shoved that wire, boop, got across just enough to stop the water. And I was like, oh man,
nice.
Did it look down? I was like, of course I'm all excited because I was like, I can't believe I did this. The guy that's with me is kind of patting me on the back kind of deal. Looked down at my foreman. He's like, all right, just get it done so we can turn this thing back on. No care in the world. Just wanted it done. I was like, man, look what I just did. I just saved
zero hex given. That's awesome.
That was the coolest.
We had when I was at Chrysler, a coolant line cracked, and the guy that I worked with, I was still an apprentice, and a really new apprentice at that. The guy that I worked with didn't want to do it while it was running. He's like, now you got to call someone in who's a specialist in this. And I wanted to take a shot at it. They wouldn't let me do it. So it's like, whatever. So they had this guy from the outside come in, and he's all cocky, I got this. Oh, you guys can do this, whatever. Gets up there and runs his root and runs his beads. And all of a sudden he's like all cocky, and then just coolant starts spraying off behind him everywhere. It's like, yeah, settle down there, buddy. But but when you do pull something like that off, that's an accomplishment.
Yeah, definitely. Makes you feel good. I did that. Wow, that was pretty cool. It wasn't going to work, but for somehow I got it to work, kind of thing. So you got to be a little cocky, just a little bit. Absolutely.
I had an instructor one time who told me, he's like, arrogance isn't that bad of a thing to have as well, or a little bit at least, because, it's that ego that makes you want to keep pushing yourself. And sometimes if you don't have that, you kind of slip off, and it's like, that's good enough. But you want to be competing with yourself and proud of everything you do. And I mean, that was one of the other things I was going to ask you about, is getting into welding. When you got into welding, for me, I never was a confident person. I've always been kind of anxious. But when I became a welder and I became good at welding, it gave me confidence to go out in other parts of my lives and do things differently, because I don't know what it was. It's like you said, there's a sense of accomplishment you have. And I'm wondering if you had any similar thing like that click on.
Definitely. Just like you said, I mean, I was kind of a back, oh, I don't know, kind of self-doubt, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
A little bit of self-doubt. Can I really do this? I just don't know, kind of nervous about, well, man, I'm be responsible for this. What if I do something wrong? This weld's not right. What if they come and x-ray this one and there's something I got to cut it out, and they're mad, then I get sent home, kind of deal. So I think when I got out there and I did start welding and people were noticing, because as much as I like to be a little, like we were talking about, a little cocky and everything else, I still like my work to speak for itself. So when
Absolutely.
people were coming out and I'm not really saying anything, and you had the guys out there that were like, oh, yeah, I can weld anything, whatever kind of deal. And I'm just like, okay, well, maybe you can. And I'm just kind of welding off to myself. And I get done and they walk by and look at, man, that looks really good. How long you been welding? I'm like, oh, just a couple of years. Like, man, really? Wow, look, 20 years maybe is what I was thinking. I'm like,
Right.
no, that's it. So I think it did build my ego just a little bit. And then in regular everyday life, I think it's kind of given me not big headed, but I think I speak up more than I used to because I've
Confidence.
Confidence. Yeah.
confidence. I feel like I've made it a little bit more in life than where I was at. So I think it definitely helped with that.
Yeah, purpose definitely gives us confidence. That's for
Right.
sure. So like on the flip side of that though are, challenges. So what's been like the most challenging part of your welding career?
Well, to touch back on what we were talking about before, I think the traveling was challenging. It's hard to be away from everybody you love and miss events, and you're off by yourself and you're working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, 16 hours a day, and barely time to call home or anything. And then my girlfriend's at home calling me, and I'm tired, and all I want to do is go to bed, and she's calling me late at night wanting to talk, and it just kind of puts a strain on relationships and everything. So that was probably the toughest part, was missing stuff like that.
Absolutely.
So actually on the last job, it got to the point where I was in Pennsylvania, but I'm from Florida. So obviously we're 16 hours away from each other. So I was like, look, just quit your job and come up here, be fine. Come live in the mountains with me for a little bit. So she came up there and lived in the camper in the mountains for 5 months.
That's
So
awesome.
That helped out a lot.
Well, there's a reason. I mean, people talk about the welders who make the most money typically are traveling, but there's a cost. I mean, there's a reason you're getting paid that money. It's because you're giving up your life. You're giving up family time. You're giving up settling down. You're giving up the norms of a regular existence, basically. So you need to be compensated for that. And it is something that I think that young welders should definitely think about doing more and more. I have a hard time when people suggest that to guys that are in their mid 40s, well, you should just go pipe weld. It's like, okay, now I've got to travel all the time. I'm already established. I'm already, I have a family, I have kids. That's just something that's really difficult to do. I mean, even with having your girlfriend, like that's a hard relationship to keep in the midst of being gone months or years at a time.
Right. Definitely. And make sure I get that point across in class, sure, you're making tons of money and the money's great and everything, but a smart man once said, are you really buying things with money, or are you buying things with the time that you've spent?
Exactly.
So it's like you're spending your time to get these things, but you're missing big events. It's
Right.
tough. So you go out there and you get your big fancy truck and you get this and that, but how many relationships are you going to go through? How many family events are you going to miss? That's definitely things you have to think about when you're getting into it, because you never know where you're going to go. You work for a company and you get a phone call and they want you to go to California, and you're from Florida, and it's like, oh man, you can kind of pick and choose, but how many times can you pick and choose before the company's like, well, I'm not going to call you anymore.
Right.
We'll find the guy that will go anywhere and do whatever we say, kind of thing, So that's definitely got to look into that a lot and keep that in your head whenever you're getting into this.
For sure.
So.
Yeah. What other advice do you have for either, younger students, younger people, or even, people a little further along in life, like late 20s, 30s, maybe even 40s, who are like, man, I'm really considering, welding career. Should I do it? Is it worth it? What's your advice?
I'd say if you're thinking about it, you should definitely at least look into it and try to, because I wish I'd have gotten started earlier. I don't know where I would have gone or what I would have done if I'd have got into it straight out of high school or anything. I kind of feel like I was lucky getting into it at 27. I got into it in my late 20s. So I think it gave me more of a respect for it, knowing where I'd come from up into that point. But if you're in your mid 30s to 40s, you definitely, if you're going to do it now. I mean, your eyesight's not going to last forever. It starts getting a little rough. So, but I think that, I mean, if you're thinking about it, go for it. It changed my whole life. I think it's awesome. It's if you've never seen welding before, it'll blow your mind. Honestly, I mean, it blew my mind. It's one of the coolest things I've ever seen, like I said. So it's you're giving up a lot of time and you're missing certain things, but the sense of accomplishment that you'll receive when you get out there and you start doing it is totally worth it.
Yeah, and you're building things that'll literally, I mean, they'll last many lifetimes. They'll last basically forever. You're putting a mark on society in a very permanent way.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So I know you said you had this 10-year plan, and it ended up getting, like fast forwarded. And so it wasn't quite 10 years by the time that you started teaching. So actually, how long has it been since you started teaching?
Well, this was actually my first semester teaching.
This was it.
So this was it.
Awesome.
This was my get in there and see how it works kind of thing.
Okay. So
it must have worked okay, since now you're building a whole other school.
Yeah. Well, hey, now I pretty much got a little bump. I'm actually going from being a night instructor at a Niceville campus to getting my own program at a Defuniak Springs campus. It's all brand new building, brand new welding booths, brand new machines, shear, saw. I mean, it's all new from the ground up. So it's
in a candy store.
That's awesome.
I guess I did okay.
Yeah, I would say so. So what do you see for yourself like in the next 10 years?
I'm definitely going to stay there at the school. I plan on retiring from there. I'd love to be there for 30 years. As we were talking about, the sense of accomplishment out doing the welding and out in the field, and looking at the plan as you're driving away and you're like, yeah, I kind of did that. I think the teaching, I mean, like I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it right now, honestly.
Yeah.
So you get somebody that comes in there that doesn't even know anything about it, like I was, and you kind of make this connection with them, and then they start welding, and then it's like this light bulb goes off and they can see it, and they see it for the first time. It's kind of just like, oh man, yes, he's got it or she's got it. Like this is gonna be awesome. So then they get it and they just keep coming to you, man, this is so cool. Yeah, look how it's looking. And then they just get more and more and more excited until they move on to a little bit harder thing. Then they start just kind of going down again. But then you got to build them back up.
Yeah.
So I see myself being there for a while, for sure.
Right on.
That's awesome. Inspiring passion. Like what's better than that? Seeing other people, succeed or follow in your footsteps, or even do better than you could have imagined, that is really, really exciting. So, hey, if anybody wants to check out your program at Northwest Florida, where could they find more information?
They can go to nwfsc.edu. Check us out. Come see me. I'll try to make you a better welder than I am, even though I'm okay. I'm decent, but I want everybody that I teach to be better than me. Like that's my end goal. Get them out there.
You're a better man than I. Somebody's trying to keep up with the students. So.
Well, I like to go in there and then they're having a hard time. I'm like, well, look, and I run like a little bit. I'm like that right there. And they're like, well, that's what I'm doing. I'm like, well, obviously you're not.
There's something wrong with the machine.
Yeah, it's always the machine. It's always. Never
Awesome. Well, hey, Matt, we're so glad that you were able to join us and chat with us. And we're excited to share your story. And we know it's going to inspire, some next steps or inspire passion and some other, men, women, boys, girls, whoever it might be checking out this video. So we're pumped to share it. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to kind of check in on you in the future and see how this thing develops, because it's a really cool thing you're doing.
Right,
yeah,
definitely.
I'll be sure to share some links somewhere here on the screen
Okay.
for where people can follow you on Instagram and TikTok. And of course, we want to keep up with GG too.
Sounds good.
Cool. So thanks again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate y'all having me. It's awesome. And don't forget the saying here. Can you see this one? Northwest Florida Welding.
Hold it up a little bit higher. Light them up.
Yes.
Light 'em
yes.
up.
shirt is so cool.
Yeah, that's a great design.
I know. I love it.
All right.